Was a top student who was praised by everyone. But behind his perfect image, he lived through a silent nightmare every single day. His father treated him like a machine built only to score high on exams, beating him over even the smallest mistakes. Crushed by endless pressure, was close to reaching his breaking point. Everything changed when he transferred to a high school known for its violence. For the first time in his life, he began to understand what it truly meant to feel alive. On his first day, the teacher warned the class not to mess with him, especially Hong-il. Hong-il was a notorious troublemaker who constantly bullied weaker students. Although Hong-il hated cold and arrogant attitude, he held back until he accidentally knocked over Walkman. Tried to stay calm and avoid conflict, but Hong-il's behavior reminded him of his abusive father. Unable to control himself, suddenly shouted. The entire classroom fell silent. No one expected the new transfer student to stand up to the school's bully. Embarrassed in front of everyone, Hong-il kicked hard and asked if he had lost his mind. Refused to fight back because he wanted to avoid more trouble. However, Hong-il had no intention of letting him off so easily. After school, a group of delinquents blocked path. Even though apologized first, Hong-il demanded compensation for the so-called emotional damage. He then saved his number in phone and ordered him to reply to his messages within 10 seconds or face the consequences. Simply glared at him and walked away. The next morning, Hong-il sent him a text. But was busy being scolded by his father and never saw the message. By the time he reached school, he had completely forgotten about it. That only made Hong-il even angrier. As punishment, Hong-il ripped off headphones and took away his Walkman. The Walkman clearly meant a lot to He stood his ground and demanded it back. Hong-il kicked him again and declared that the Walkman belonged to him now. Reached out once more and calmly asked for it back. Instead, Hong-il threw it onto the ground and crushed it under his foot. He then stepped closer, poked forehead and continued insulting him. That was the final straw. Filled with rage, threw a powerful punch. Hong-il crashed to the ground, leaving everyone stunned. The two immediately began fighting. Attacked like a wild beast, grabbing Hong-il and slamming him onto the floor. After defeating the bully, he picked up his Walkman, but Hong-il tried to attack him from behind. Reacted instantly, dodged the attack, and landed 2 heavy punches that left Hong-il unable to get back up. Uni watched everything from the side and was impressed by the new transfer student. Meanwhile, calmly put on his headphones and returned to studying as if nothing had happened. After school, he reflected on the fight. For the first time in a long while, he smiled. That brutal battle had cracked open the darkness surrounding his life and allowed him to breathe again. When returned home, he remembered his late brother sitting at the family table. The Walkman had once been his brother's most treasured possession. His brother had always told him not to simply hear music with his ears, but to feel it with his heart. To them, music was proof that they were still alive. That was why always listened to music while hurting himself, using it as a way to release the pressure inside him. The following day at school, Hong-il slapped the back of head and warned him to be careful. Uni kindly told that a student named Seong-jun would probably come looking for him. Seong-jun was known as the king of the freshmen because he had boxing experience. Didn't appreciate Uni getting involved and told him to stay away. Just as Uni predicted, Seong-jun soon appeared looking for a fight. Tried to explain what had happened the previous day, but Seong-jun ignored his explanation, punched him hard and ordered him to kneel. Never looked for fights, but he was never afraid of them either. Before things could get worse, a teacher walked into the classroom. The boys immediately scattered. Thought the problem was over. However, after school, he discovered that his Walkman was missing from his bag. At that moment, Hong-il called him and told him to come back to the place where they had fought if he wanted his Walkman back. Rushed there without hesitation. On the way, Uni warned him not to waste all his energy or he would be beaten badly. He also advised that if he wanted any chance of winning, he needed to stay close to Seong-jun and drag the fight to the ground. When they arrived, Seong-jun declared that could only get his Walkman back by defeating him. Still wanted to avoid fighting, but Seong-jun launched one punch after another without showing any mercy. Eventually, decided to end the conflict once and for all. Unfortunately, Seong-jun was far stronger than him. Even so, was intelligent. He carefully observed Seong-jun's attack pattern. After spotting an opening, he faked a move and landed a clean punch. Seong-jun became furious and beat down even harder. At that moment, remembered Uni's advice. He grabbed Seong-jun tightly and rolled down the stairs with him. Got back on his feet first and ended the fight with one final punch. Seong-jun was no longer able to continue. Had won in a way that no one expected. Uni couldn't stop praising his fighting skills. Curious, asked why Uni kept helping him. Uni replied that he hated bullies more than anything and believed had incredible potential as a fighter. Just then, received a text message from his father. To keep his parents from finding out about the fight, swapped clothes with Uni. Uni also gave him some BB cream to hide the bruises on his face. When arrived at the academy, he found his father scolding the teachers because of his declining grades. To relieve his stress, he replayed the recent fight over and over in his mind. He realized he was beginning to enjoy the excitement it brought him. The next day, an 11th grade bully severely punished Seong-jun and his friends. Ji-hyuk felt humiliated that Seong-jun had lost to a quiet honor student. He warned the 3 boys that if they didn't smash the transfer student's head with a brick that day, they would all pay the price. After school, Uni followed everywhere like a shadow. He kept talking about how he had managed to remove the bloodstains from clothes. Ignored him the entire time. Meanwhile, Seongjun didn't want to take revenge in such a cruel way, but under pressure from the senior, he picked up a wooden stick and struck on the head. Uni panicked and immediately tried to call the police. Stopped him and said Seongjun hadn't meant to seriously hurt him. Moments later, he collapsed. When regained consciousness, he found himself lying in a hospital bed. He quickly tried to leave, but his parents were standing at the door, terrified of his father's reaction. Didn't dare say a single word. Uni stepped in and lied, claiming that had simply fallen down the stairs. Instead of showing concern, father only asked about his class ranking. To him, was only allowed to be friends with students who earned top grades. For mother, however, the night was filled with painful memories. Years earlier, older brother had also been taken away in an ambulance and never returned. Seongjun worried that the situation had gone too far. Feeling guilty, he decided to visit at the hospital. As soon as he entered, he ran into mother. She assumed he was one of friends and warmly thanked him for visiting. When she noticed the bruises on his face, she gently told him to apply some ointment. Her kindness only made Seongjun feel even more guilty. Unable to face her, he apologized and hurried away. Back at home, mother tried to talk with him about school, but didn't want to open up. There was a painful distance between the two of them. After resting for just one night, returned to school. He had no intention of blaming Seongjun. He only hoped everything would end there. Seongjun didn't argue. He simply warned not to act so boldly again. However, Ji-hyuk wasn't ready to let the matter go. He decided to deal with the transfer student himself. Silently stared back at him without saying a word. Ji-hyuk quickly lost his patience. He ordered Uni to bring to the rooftop at noon, threatening to make everyone's school life miserable until graduation if they refused. With no other choice, went to the rooftop. He apologized to Ji-hyuk first. Then he promised to follow whatever Seongjun said from then on. Even that wasn't enough to satisfy Ji-hyuk. He ordered Seongjun to show off his boxing skills by beating This time, however, Seongjun remained completely still. Humiliated in front of the freshmen, Ji-hyuk grabbed a wooden sword and began beating Seongjun to reassert his authority. Finally, couldn't stand it any longer. He knocked the sword aside and launched a fierce attack. At first, Ji-hyuk struggled against him, but after recovering the wooden sword, he quickly gained the upper hand. His skill with the weapon was so impressive that couldn't fight back. Just as was about to lose consciousness, Seongjun kicked Ji-hyuk from behind. Furious, Ji-hyuk demanded to know if Seongjun had gone crazy. He then turned his anger toward realized the only way to win was to take the wooden sword away. Ignoring the pain, he endured the attacks until he managed to grab it. Then he used the boxing combinations he had learned from watching Seongjun and defeated the arrogant senior. At that moment, felt an incredible sense of relief. After everything that happened, Seongjun decided to change his life and stop fighting at school. Only moments earlier, Ji-hyuk had been acting fearless. Now he nervously approached a younger student and asked for help. As slowly climbed the stairs, Seong-sik kindly offered to help him. He even acted respectfully in front of the teachers. After walking back to the classroom, Seong-sik casually asked him for money to buy a can of cola. Although confused, handed him the money anyway. Later, during tutoring class, couldn't stop thinking about the recent fights. Because of the distraction, he performed poorly on the test. The teacher immediately scolded him. As wondered how to relieve the stress building inside him, he noticed Seong-sik standing at the classroom door. A slight smile appeared on his face. He knew Seong-sik was the infamous 12th grade bully. Without hesitation, directly asked if they should fight right there. Seong-sik burst into laughter and mocked him for acting crazy. Just then, father arrived. He warned that true strength came through hard work and studying, not from temporary power gained through fighting like delinquents. Remained silent. Deep down, all he wanted was to return to school because something far more exciting was waiting for him there. The following day, Uni warned not to get into another fight until he had fully recovered. Otherwise, he would definitely lose. But Seong-sik had no intention of giving them any peace. He invited to join him and become the most feared student in the entire school. He called it power and privilege, but scoffed and said it was nothing more than being a thug. Seong-sik laughed awkwardly before pouring an entire bottle of cola over head. Was ready to fight back, but Uni signaled him to stay calm. Seeing hold himself back, Seong-sik mocked him even more. That weekend, attended his grandfather's birthday party. He was the only grandson his grandfather welcomed warmly. Perhaps it was because he was the only one who could inherit the family's fortune. His grandfather wanted him to transfer back to his former elite school and rise to the top through competition, but firmly refused. Even though his current school was filled with troublemakers, it was the only place where he truly felt alive. While standing under the blazing sun, thought he saw his late brother. Lost in the moment, he walked toward the figure and accidentally fell into the swimming pool. Fortunately, his father jumped in and pulled him out just in time. Mother blamed his grandfather for putting too much pressure on him. His grandfather fired back, accusing both parents of being weak and ruining life. Quietly, began to cry. The entire atmosphere felt heavy and suffocating. The very next next day, he marched straight to confront Seong-sik. Yoonhee, worried about him, asked what had happened. Admitted that he felt ashamed for submitting to those bullies. He stormed into the classroom, forced Seong-sik to drink cola the same way he had been humiliated, and threw the empty bottle aside. Seong-sik laughed loudly and challenged him to a fight in the band room. Accepted without hesitation. Just as promised, he arrived at the meeting place. Seong-sik gave him 10 seconds to make a choice. He could either join him or be beaten on the spot. Decided to end the fight quickly because he still had to study. The battle began immediately. Fought with everything he had. Even so, Seong-sik quickly overpowered him and pinned him to the floor. As struggled to breathe, he remembered his brother using the same hold on him years ago. Moments later, he lost consciousness. Excited by the fight, Seong-sik turned his attention toward Yoonhee. Although Yoonhee usually acted like a coward, he hated being humiliated. He raised his fists and prepared to fight. At that moment, suddenly regained consciousness. He warned Seong-sik that choking him again could end up killing him. Seong-sik only laughed and ignored the warning. He grabbed by the neck once more, trying to force him to beg for mercy. This time, spotted an opening and pinned Seong-sik to the ground. He unleashed a relentless barrage of punches. Another bully rushed in to help, but Yoonhee kicked him away. Seong-sik called for a pause to catch his breath. To everyone's surprise, Yoonhee was far stronger than he had ever appeared. He finished off his opponent with a clean spinning kick. Now it was turn to face Seong-sik again. Seong-sik targeted arm, trying to break it. Cried out in pain. Even so, he stubbornly stood back up and turned the fight around. After watching Yoonhee, he copied the same spinning kick and landed it perfectly. In the end, the arrogant Seong-sik was completely defeated. Warned everyone never to behave like thugs at school again. From that day forward, the new transfer student became the strongest student in school. Yoonhee was overjoyed. At last, the bullies could no longer terrorize everyone. But felt conflicted. He had become addicted to the excitement of fighting. The obsession became so intense that he couldn't even concentrate during cram school exams. His teacher poked him on the forehead to remind him to focus. This time, resisted. The teacher was shocked and immediately threw him out of the classroom. Later, father scolded him and nearly hit him. Watching it happen broke his mother's heart once again. The following day, Yoonhee called outside and showed him a video of another bullying incident. The bully was a student named Nam-hoo-bae from a different high school. In the video, he was brutally tormenting a weaker student. Because his father was a famous medical school professor, Nam-hoo-bae's violent behavior was often covered up. Yoonhee wanted to team up with and teach him a lesson. Just then, father called him. Yoonhee grabbed the phone and told to stop letting his father control every part of his life. Furious, nearly punched Yoonhee. At that moment, a boy walked out of a nearby convenience store and thanked for defeating the school bullies. Because of actions, he was no longer being bullied. Yoonhee explained that hadn't fought to become a hero. He had simply been trying to release the pressure inside himself. That evening, father took him to a high society gathering. He instructed to make a good impression. Politely greeted one of the professors at the event. The professor encouraged him to study hard and enter medical school. He then introduced his own son. The moment saw him, he recognized the face immediately. It was the same bully from the video. Ironically, Nam-hoo-bae proudly talked about creating an app to help students with disabilities. In reality, he was someone who preyed on the weak. Unable to stay silent, exposed Nam-hoo-bae's history of school violence in front of everyone. His father quickly dragged him outside. He told that the world was harsh and complicated, and that he needed to apologize to the professor's son. Asked if his father wanted him to become just like his late brother. Enraged, his father slapped him across the face. The death of brother was a painful subject that no one in the family dared to discuss. As heavy rain poured down, sat alone in silence. Thinking about his arrogant father and his helpless mother, made a life-changing decision. He ran through the pouring rain to find Yoonhee and agreed to join him in punishing the bullies. At the same time, Nam-hoo-bae continued tormenting students at his school. That night, and Yoonhee appeared wearing red masks. They introduced themselves as the high school heroes and declared war on the thugs. Challenged the strongest fighter, Nam-hoo-bae, while Yoonhee took on the others. After studying his opponent's fighting style, used the boxing combinations he had learned from Song-joon. However, Nam-hoo-bae was skilled in Muay Thai and quickly gained the upper hand. Yoonhee defeated the other two boys without much trouble and rushed over to help Nam-hoo-bae tried to trap Yoonhee the same way, but Yoonhee was too fast and agile. After catching his breath, faced the powerful opponent once again. This time, he finished the fight with a powerful spinning kick. Yoonhee then forced Nam-hoo-bae to apologize to the student he had bullied. He also told the victim that the best way to overcome fear was to stand up to those who had hurt him. Meanwhile, recorded everything as evidence. Later that night, and Yoonhee celebrated the debut of the high school heroes by sharing a few beers together. Afterward, Yoonhee visited his friend Jeong in the hospital. 3 years earlier, Jeong had fallen into a coma after being brutally bullied by Nam-hoo-bae and 3 other students. That was the real reason Yoonhee had chosen as his partner. His goal was to take revenge on Nam-hoo-bae. He also swore that the remaining bullies would one day kneel before them. After Uni left the hospital, Jiang's hand moved slightly. Since had defeated the school's 3 strongest bullies, no one dared challenge him anymore. Meanwhile, Seongjun distanced himself from the troublemakers and devoted himself to boxing. Before leaving, he kindly warned He said that people who relied only on their fists would eventually be destroyed by them. At the time, didn't understand the meaning behind those words. Not long afterward, a new transfer student named Ga-il joined the senior class. He happened to be placed in the same classroom as Seong-sik and unknowingly sat in his seat. Seong-sik saw the opportunity to extort him. He demanded a weekly payment of 100,000 won and threatened to beat him if he refused. What Seong-sik didn't realize was that he had picked the wrong target. Ga-il easily dodged every attack. He effortlessly embarrassed Seong-sik in front of everyone. Completely outmatched, Seong-sik suffered a crushing defeat. Trying to save his pride, he came up with another dirty plan. He spread rumors to and Uni that the new transfer student wanted to take over the school. Believing the story, the two called Ga-il to the rooftop for a confrontation. Ga-il calmly explained that he had no interest in fighting and that Seong-sik had started everything. But strong sense of justice clouded his judgment. He attacked first, but failed to gain any advantage. The moment Uni noticed Ga-il's name tag, he remembered hearing stories about him. He quickly stopped and apologized for the misunderstanding. Ga-il said that although their actions seemed righteous, they could easily become another form of injustice. He believed no one had the right to decide who was truly good or evil. Later, Uni explained the mystery surrounding Mumyang High School, where Ga-il had once studied. Because the school was filled with violent teenage criminals, the government had turned it into an experimental institution. Instead of stopping fights, the teachers encouraged them. Only the strongest students could survive and leave. It was clear that Ga-il had once stood at the very top. While Uni excitedly shared the story, he noticed several bullies following Ga-il. Ga-il led them into a quiet alley. He once again explained that he wanted no trouble and would stay out of everyone's way. But Seong-sik cared only about protecting his reputation in front of his followers. Within seconds, Ga-il defeated the 2 bullies with ease. Hidden nearby, Uni secretly recorded the entire fight. He later asked Ga-il to help him if he ever needed assistance. With little choice, Ga-il reluctantly agreed. Back at cram school, couldn't stop thinking about Ga-il's words. He no longer knew how to judge what was truly right or wrong. Confused, he returned home. Instead of comfort, he was greeted with a hard slap from his father. His father was furious because had failed his exams and skipped classes. For the first time, Um's mother stood up to her husband. She blocked him from hitting their son again and begged him to stop forcing to study. Their argument made feel even more trapped. Meanwhile, a poor student was being threatened for money. The leader of the bullies was Ki-eun, Uni's second target. He had no idea that he had already become the next victim. The high school heroes suddenly appeared and launched the fight with an impressive spinning kick. They quickly knocked the bullies into the sand, one after another. The frightened victims were so amazed by what they witnessed that they recorded the entire scene on their phones. As the fight continued, seemed to lose control. His punches became more violent with every strike. It was as if he were releasing all the pain and frustration that had built up inside him. Uni noticed something was wrong and tried to stop him, but insisted that people like those bullies deserved no mercy. In the end, the last bit of kindness remaining inside him stopped him from making an irreversible mistake. After the fight, Uni told that he had gone too far and nearly caused a tragedy. Questioned whether that wasn't exactly what Uni had wanted from the beginning. Before Uni could answer, he received an urgent phone call and rushed to the hospital. When he saw his friend finally awake, he could no longer hold back his tears. Now, only 2 perpetrators remained unpunished. Back at home, father decided to clear out his late son's room so could focus entirely on studying. His mother became furious. She scolded him for caring only about grades while failing to notice the bruises covering face. Hearing those words, his father was stunned. At that moment, returned home. His father stopped him and demanded that he hand over the broken Walkman. Refused because it had been his brother's most treasured possession. His brother had once said that whenever he put on his headphones, he could escape to a world where their father didn't exist. Even after hearing that, his father showed no remorse. Instead, he criticized his late son for being too weak. Unable to hold back any longer, broke down. He accused his parents of destroying his brother's life. Years earlier, his brother had taken out his stress by hurting Now had become addicted to fighting as his own way of escaping pressure. He was like a bird trying to fly free, while his father was the one clipping his wings. That night, the high school heroes began their 3rd mission for revenge. Before entering, Uni reminded to stay calm and remember that they were different from the people they were fighting. However, the moment they entered the building, Do-il smiled with excitement. He had already already gathered information from one of the bullying victims. The situation quickly turned against and Yoonhee. Their enemies greatly outnumbered them and were armed. Within moments, the two were overwhelmed. Do-il ripped off their masks. He recognized Yoonhee and realized he was taking revenge for his friend. With no other option, and Yoonhee smashed a window and escaped. The gang chased them relentlessly. Fortunately, Seongjun arrived on a motorcycle and rescued them. Begged Seongjun to let him stay the night. He believed his father would kill him if he returned home looking like that. Later, the two visited the boxing gym. Looking around at the many trophies, finally realized how talented Seongjun truly was. Seongjun advised him to stop getting involved with violent people. He admitted that fighting had once seemed exciting to him as well, but over time it became an addiction. Eventually, he started looking for fights even when there was no reason. It nearly destroyed his future. Seongjun's words slowly reached Little by little, he calmed down and began focusing on his studies again, but evil didn't disappear simply because he had changed. The three defeated bullies sought help from the strongest fighter, Q. Nam-hoo-bi promised that this job would come with a huge reward. Tempted by the money, Q accepted without hesitation. He casually asked a nearby student where Yoonhee was. Just then, Seong-sik walked over and questioned who this arrogant stranger was. Q ignored him completely. Instead, he ordered Seong-sik to bring Yoonhee to him. Seong-sik jokingly demanded 50,000 won for the job. Q agreed. He paid him with a kick powerful enough to leave him on the ground. Using only one hand, Q effortlessly defeated Seong-sik until he could barely stand. Even after Seong-sik tried to trap him, Q easily broke his leg. After proving his strength, Q sent someone else to bring Yoonhee. When and Yoonhee arrived, Q greeted Yoonhee with a smile. Immediately removed his headphones and prepared to fight, but Yoonhee told him to stay back because this battle belonged to him. 3 years earlier, a group of bullies had tried to force Yoonhee and Jung to become their lackeys and extort younger students. The two friends refused without hesitation. As a result, they were beaten mercilessly. Even while covered in bruises, they continued joking and laughing together. Sadly, the bullying never stopped. They were caught again and ordered to hand over protection money. Yoonhee gave away all the money he had. Jung refused. Because of that, he became the bully's target. After hesitating, Yoonhee chose to save himself and ran away. But before he got very far, overwhelming guilt consumed him. He turned around and rushed back. By the time he returned, the bullies had already pushed Jang down the stairs. From that day onward, Yoonhee swore that he would make every one of them pay. Now, however, he stood before the powerful Q. The difference in strength was overwhelming. Q struck him repeatedly while mocking him with cruel words. Couldn't bear watching his friend suffer. He stepped forward and demanded that Q stop. Q only smirked and threatened to finish Yoonhee once and for all. Filled with anger, charged straight at him. At first, he couldn't match Q's strength. Yet the more punishment he endured, the more determined he became. Q noticed the change and finally became serious. With one devastating kick, he broke arm. Screamed in agony as he collapsed to the ground. Q showed no mercy. He picked up a guitar and prepared to smash leg. Just then, Ga-il appeared and ordered him to stop. Q knew he couldn't defeat Ga-il. Without another word, he backed away. Before leaving, he took Walkman with him. That single act made it clear that their conflict was far from over. Ga-il told Yoonhee not to ask for his help again. According to him, they were now even. As drifted toward unconsciousness, painful memories of his brother returned. Years earlier, his brother had also been beaten by their father and forced to study endlessly. Their father believed that academic success was the only way to avoid being looked down upon. Unable to handle the pressure, brother often took out his frustration on him. The only time he found peace was when he put on his headphones. Even when their parents noticed how much he was suffering, they simply told him to endure it because the college entrance exams were approaching. Eventually, he was accepted into medical school, just as they had always wanted. But not long afterward, he confessed to his mother that he wanted to drop out. Just like before, she ignored his pain. His father responded by shouting at him and insulting him. One night, older brother quietly sat beside his bed and handed him his treasured Walkman. He said that wearing the headphones allowed him to escape to a world where their father didn't exist. He also apologized for all the pain he had caused. Not long afterward, he took his own life. When woke up, he was lying in a hospital bed. His father angrily demanded to know who had done this. He swore that those responsible would end up behind bars. Answered that it was Nam-hoo-bae. Then he asked his father if he truly had the courage to send Nam-hoo-bae to prison. His father fell silent. It was obvious that he didn't dare. He still needed to maintain business ties with Nam-hoo-bae's father's hospital. That night, imagined seeing his brother once again. He followed the vision all the way to the rooftop, as if he were ready to make the same heartbreaking decision. His mother realized he was missing and rushed upstairs to find him. Looked completely exhausted. For the first time, he truly understood the pain his brother had carried. His mother broke down in tears and apologized. She admitted that her own greed and silence had hurt both of her sons. The guilt weighed so heavily on her that she could barely breathe. In the end, chose not to follow his brother's path. His mother embraced him tightly and promised that she would become a better mother from that day forward. However, his father still refused to face reality. He planned to send to the United States to continue his studies. This time, mother firmly stood against him. She declared that she would never allow anyone to hurt her son again. Back at school, Seongjun blamed Yoonhee. He believed Yoonhee had dragged a model student student into a life of violence. Yooni couldn't help feeling guilty. Later, he visited Jiang at the hospital. He blamed himself, saying that if he hadn't run away that day, Jiang would never have ended up like this. After hearing those words, Jiang finally revealed the truth. After Yooni had fled, the bullies made a bet on whether he would come back. Do-il lost the bet and decided to drag Yooni back to teach him a lesson. Jiang stepped in to protect his friend. The bullies only intended to scare him. Instead, they caused a terrible tragedy. Jiang never blamed Yooni. In fact, he was grateful that Yooni had returned for him. Meanwhile, Q gathered several fighters and blocked Ga-il's path. A fight became unavoidable. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Ga-il defeated them one after another. Then one attacker struck him from behind while another slammed him to the ground. Ga-il became dizzy. Arms was dislocated. Even with only one usable arm, he still managed to defeat the remaining opponents. But then Q appeared. He waited until Ga-il was at his weakest before challenging him to a one-on-one fight. It was a cowardly move. Even worse, despite Ga-il's injuries, Q still couldn't defeat him fairly. So Q pretended to lose consciousness. The moment Ga-il lowered his guard, Q landed a powerful punch and won the fight. When Yooni saw Ga-il's injuries, he became furious, but Ga-il calmly said he deserved it. He explained that violence always comes back to the person who creates it. Then he asked Yooni about Yooni didn't know how to answer. Looking at an airplane flying through the blue sky and empty classroom seat, he was overwhelmed with guilt. He remembered all the times they had fought side by side to stop the bullies. Only then did he realize that had become his closest friend. Determined to help him, Yooni went alone to confront Q and recover the Walkman. Q said he would return it only if Yooni could defeat him. Without hesitation, Yooni attacked. His kicks were fast and precise. He even landed a powerful spinning kick. Enraged that his face had been hit, Q stopped holding back. He unleashed everything he had against the self-proclaimed hero. Yooni was soon covered in bruises and completely exhausted. In the end, Q answered with a devastating spinning kick that brought the fight to an end. This time, however, Q didn't go any further. He returned the Walkman because he respected someone willing to risk everything for a friend. Meanwhile, and his mother moved into a hotel. Keeping her promise, she encouraged him to live the life he wanted. While they were eating together, she smiled and asked him to bring Yooni to dinner someday. She even teased him by asking whether he liked any girls. For the first time in a long while, smiled brightly. He happily chatted with his mother about his friends. Unfortunately, their happiness didn't last. Using his influence, grandfather contacted the police and medical staff. He falsely claimed that mother was mentally unstable and incapable of caring for her son. All could do was watch helplessly as his mother was taken away. In his eyes, the people who truly needed help were his father and grandfather. Their obsession with success had destroyed his brother's life and torn the family apart. Just then, Yooni called him. Ignoring the danger, jumped out of the moving car and ran to meet his friend. Yooni had heard that would soon be leaving to study abroad, so he recovered the Walkman and brought it back. Smiling proudly, he said he had repaired it himself by following a YouTube tutorial. Yooni said goodbye and walked away. As watched his friend leave, countless emotions rushed through his mind. He put on his headphones and pressed play on the Walkman. The moment the music began, he finally felt alive, just as his brother had once promised. The next morning, father came to school looking for him, but was standing outside Q's school, quietly waiting for him. The final showdown was about to begin. Even with his arm in a cast, charged forward like a wild beast. Q relied on his years of street fighting experience and quickly gained the upper hand. After taking another punch to the face, Q became even more aggressive. He attacked relentlessly, leaving almost no chance to fight back. Then Q mocked him, saying they were both nothing more than broken pieces of trash. Those words struck deeply. Suddenly, he burst into laughter. He shouted that he was nothing like Q. The fight became even more intense. At the perfect moment, smashed the cast on his arm directly into Q's head. That was what happened when someone pushed an honor student beyond his limits. Even then, Q refused to stop provoking him. Lost control. Images of his suffering brother flashed through his mind. Then he remembered his abusive father. Finally, he saw the frightened version of himself that had endured years of pain. He unleashed punch after punch, pouring every bit of anger and frustration into the fight. Then he put on his headphones, ready to end everything once and for all. At that critical moment, Yooni shouted and stopped him. Father stood there in shock, asking what had happened. Said nothing. He simply turned on his Walkman. As the music played, he remembered the dream he had once buried. He had never wanted to become a doctor like his father and grandfather. His real dream had always been simple. He only wanted the freedom to enjoy the blue sky and drifting white clouds. Just then, an airplane flew across the sky. With a final strike, defeated the bully. For the first time in his life, he truly felt free. After everything was over, chose not to study in the United States. Instead, he transferred to Mumyong High School. Before leaving, he hugged his mother. He silently bowed to his father from a distance. Then he boarded the bus alone. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice. Yooni had decided to face the uncertain future by his side. When they arrived, the teachers roughly forced the boys off the bus. This was the mysterious Mumyong High School, where only the 10 strongest fighters could ever earn their freedom. As the school gates slowly opened, eyes filled with excitement. For the first time, he believed he had found a place where he could live without fear and finally be his true self. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Lately, my videos haven't been getting much support, so if you could share this video, it would mean a lot to me. Every like, share, and subscription helps this channel grow. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next recap.